So yesterday, the big news was that President Trump is withdrawing 2,000 American troops from Syria. Today, the big news is that General Mattis is retiring from the Pentagon, and that there is even talk about a staged withdrawal on this issue. But he knows the score with regard to America's involvement in continuous wars all over the world. And we shouldn't pay attention to some of the alarmist talk coming out of the neocons about, the rebuilding of ISIS and their attack on America if we don't continue to engage in these foreign wars. This could potentially be a very, very positive and exciting development and a real change from American policy, really going back to the end of World War II, when the United States has been involved in a perpetual series of foreign entanglements and foreign wars, none of which have really secured not only the United States, but the bad countries of the world. Perhaps this is a return to the diplomatic position of George Kennan, who wrote a famous article in Foreign Affairs back in 1947, and who established the principle of containment, which is to say that rather than engage in these constant hot wars, you contain the enemy, you surround the enemy, you boycott the enemy. The positive efforts of your propaganda, if you will, but actually it's the positive message of your society to erode the position of your enemy. This is how Ronald Reagan defeated the Soviet Union without firing a shot. He basically brought in American corporate heads and asked them to please not, renew contracts with Russia. Don't do anything extra for Russia. And then he began a diplomatic effort. He strengthened Radio Europe, and he presented psychologically and even spiritually, contrasting the difference between American civilization and Russian or Soviet civilization, and showing that our civilization was superior. People were more free. There was a better economy. There was more prosperity. There was private ownership, and there was all the institutions that made us who we were. And he even brought up the fact that we believe in God. I mean, when Ronald Reagan was in Moscow a year or so before the collapse of the Soviet Union, he very publicly went to a church and he spoke of God, and it was absolutely horrifying for the old Great Britain, Pope John Paul II in Rome, and behind the enemy lines you had Lech Walesa of Poland and Václav Havel of Czechoslovakia. They were able to affect the collapse and the implosion of that old rotten Soviet system. Now that doesn't mean that Putin is a lot better. Putin is no bowl of cherries, but it's a heck of a lot better. People need to remember that compared to the old left-wing Soviet system, it's really a major move forward in terms of the fostering of freedom and limited government and all of the things that has made America great. Well, now President Trump is saying we don't want to continue these constant wars. What'll this mean? I think that if we work with allies, it's going to mean that these rotten, miserable, authoritarian regimes like that of Syria and Iran, that they're going to implode on their own rot, just like the Soviet Union did, because they are inferior, because people don't want to live under these horrible regimes, and that they cannot continue to prop themselves up by means of force of arms and terror, which is their main and actually only real calling card in their attempt to continue. Plus, they obviously stand for the revolutionary principle, which is to try to take over the world and create a new man and a new messiah, and all of these things that are anathema to our American understanding of the individual as sovereign under a great sovereign God and a limited government. So I feel encouraged. Now, as far as Israel's concerned, I think Israel can take care of itself in Syria. Israel's approach is exactly the right approach, and which should be emulated by the United States. Rather than have troops in there all the time, occupying the country and constantly engaging in war, Israel keeps the olive branch of peace out to its neighbors, but at the same time, if you have an enemy that goes in and tries to kill your people and attack your country, you go into their country and you just take out that enemy as best you can and as surgically as you can, without causing the minimal amount of loss of life and the minimal amount of military engagement. That's what Israel's presently doing with Hezbollah on the border in Lebanon. They don't want to go in and occupy Lebanon. They want to go in and damage the Hezbollah infrastructure to the point where they can no longer threaten Israel, and to do so with the minimum amount of innocent life loss. They've warned people that this is going to be happening and that they should get out. And they've given them enough time to get out so that Israel can conduct its defensive operations. That's how we should approach Syria. Not to constantly be there with armies and, draining American resources and threatening and losing American lives, but simply letting the Syrians know that we have the technological ability, we have the know-how to handle any threat to the United States specifically, and that we will go in and we will use our means to handle that threat without this occupation. So that's my hope for a new Trump policy. I hope that it's going to be modeled on the Keenan policy of containment, which is to say, we reach out to you in peace. We may not like your society. In fact, we don't like your societies because they're oppressive, and in many cases they're evil. But if you want to have a peaceful relationship with us, and if you want to at least maintain a modicum of human rights in your country, then we will respect your sovereignty. But if you don't respect ours, and you in any way damage American property or American lives or threaten American property or life, then we will surgically deal with it, but we will deal with it in a way that is very decisive and that will be very effective. So I think that this development is quite exciting, frankly, and I think that it could potentially really lead to some major changes in the way we conduct our business and the way we have conducted our business internationally since Wilson and the massive world order intervention.